Okay,
Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
okay. So before we begin, what is the importance of Chaucer? We should first understand what England was and what English literature was before Chaucer comes to the scene. If we look at the beginning, there were several tribes who were the inhabitants of the island of Britain. The original inhabitants of the island of Britain were Celts. They were divided into two different tribes, Brythons and Gales. They lived in the island of Britain up to 55 BC. Then there is Roman conquest. The land of the island of the Britain was very fertile, so it was prone to various attacks time and again. So there is Roman conquest from 55 BC, and they ruled until 407 AD. During the reign of the Romans, there were so many developments in the social and uh, living style of the people of Britain. The towns were Romanized. There was military presence. People were peaceful. They were safe and secure. There was military presence, and the Christianity also comes into the dominance. And we also find the influence of Latin during this period. Then there is Anglo-Saxon invasions, which begins in 407 AD to 787 AD, which also gives us the name England and English, because the name England comes from the word England, where Engels used to live. And English literature is also known with this Anglo-Saxon. Okay, we also know that the beginning of English literature is from Anglo-Saxon period itself, because we also know it as Old English period. Then there is Viking invasion, and in 1066 AD there is Norman conquest. So before we come to Chaucer, there are so many ups and downs in the history of England, which affect the way people use language, the way people uh, produce works, and the way people live. So during this Anglo-Saxon period, there were five kingdoms. As you can see on the screen, there was Northumbria, Mercia, East Anglia, Wessex, and Kent. In all these parts, there were four main dialects which were present: the Northumbrian, Mercian, Kentish, and West Saxon. You might have heard about King Alfred. He is always referred to as King Alfred the Great, because uh, uh, he was the one who started the Chronicles, Arthur Chronicles, if you have heard about it. So, West Saxon dialect became the standard dialect due to political supremacy during the reign of King Alfred. But later on, these dialects were modified as we reached the Middle English period after the Norman conquest. In the Anglo-Saxon period, we find there are so many battles. There is a Norwegian attack on England in 1066 at the Battle of Stamford. There is Norman conquest under William the Conqueror, who comes from France, and he defeats the last Anglo-Saxon king, Harold Godwinson. With this conquest, French becomes the official language of England. In the initial part, it was Latin. Now there is French. So around 1100, you find that there is blend of Old English and Norman French, and English language begins to take its own identity around this period. So with the beginning of Norman conquest, we find the beginning of Middle English period. It begins from 1066 and lasts up to 1500. So this period can be divided into two parts: before Chaucer and after Chaucer. And we find before Chaucer there was war literature, there was religious literature, there were romances, knights' quest for courtly love and chivalry. There was local tradition of songs and ballads, and all these works were anonymous. Writers did not name their work. If you have heard about Kenny Wolf and Cadman, uh, uh, Kenny Wolf is the one writer who has written his name in his work in runic letters. Otherwise, there are no names found. The works are anonymous almost. During this period, London also gains prominence because it is the capital of Norman people. We also find certain other works such as Ormulum, which is written by Orm, the Owl and the Nightingale, Aleamin's Brut, Arthurian Chronicles, and Roman de la Rose, which are some of the prominent works which we find before Chaucer. When Chaucer comes to the fore, there is an alliterative revival. There is a Pearl poet and the Gawain poet. You might have heard about the three uh, poems, Pearl, Patience, and Purity. You can see the alliteration in the words mentioned, right? Pearl, Purity, and Patience. So, Gawain poet was also there. He was also a contemporary of Chaucer, Gower, and Langland. And in this period, the dialects, the Old English dialects, have also been modified. We find Southwestern dialect, Southeastern dialect, East Midland dialect, West Midland dialect, and Northern dialect. All these dialects have developed from the Old English dialects which were spoken earlier in the Old English period. So the dialect in which Chaucer wrote his work is East Midland dialect, which also nowadays modernized, and we know it as English language. So English is basically it was not a language initially, but it was a dialect. And why Chaucer is important? The topic of our today's discussion is Chaucer and the English literature, right? So we know Chaucer as the father of English literature because it is Chaucer who selected a dialect and made it a language. He wrote in this dialect, which is later modified and modernized into a language that we know today, which is very much a prominent language. Uh, who was Chaucer? There is not much found about Chaucer's life and works, but okay, about his personal life. But we can say he lived under three monarchs. First one was Edward III, in whose reign he was born. He was born around 1340. The exact date is uncertain, but it is now generally accepted as being 1340. He was born in London, and also in 1377, there was succession of Richard II. Right. So before the succession of Richard II, he also enters the household of the wife of the Duke of Clarence, and also serves in the military of the army. He was also once captured, and the king pays a handsome ransom to the other party to save Chaucer from the imprisonment. So Chaucer was a very important figure in the court of the king. Uh, in the 1400, he dies with the accession of Henry IV, which is the establishment of Lancastrian dynasty in England. So it is very briefly, his life is very briefly divided into three stages, where three different kings ruled: Edward III, Richard II, and Henry IV. When Richard II succeeded to the crown, Chaucer was confirmed in his offices again, and he was also given pensions, and he was also sent to various military missions. So he with the English army, he was sent to France. And okay, I gave you an example that he was uh, paid ransom to save his life. The king paid ransom, so he continues to be closely connected with the court, and he is sent on various diplomatic missions during the reigns of these kings. So after his death, he was buried at the Poets' Corner. We all know about it. You can Google it and find out the images as well. Poets' Corner is in Westminster Abbey. He is the first poet to be buried at Westminster Abbey. If we look at Chaucer's England, right, what he depicts in his work is from the things that he has observed around himself. In his time, England was emerging as a distinct nation. There were so many ups and downs. There were so many revolts happening. There were so many movements happening. There was Christianity also flourishing. There was in Oxford was also emerging as a dominant center. There were plagues. There was rebellion. There was corruption. There was war, 100 Years' War, which was fought between England and France. There were with this there was also illiteracy. People were learning, but at the same time there was a widespread illiteracy as well, and books were not uh, as much cheap or available to the local reading public. You might know about Wycliffe's translation of the Bible, which gives prominence to English language, because Bible was considered the sole authority of the clergyman. People were not able to understand what is written in it. But when Wycliffe's translation comes, people are able to understand what is actually written in it. So English uh, comes to gain its own identity during this period. So the events that are happening in this era are aptly shown in the works that Chaucer has written, right? We find, okay, if you have ever read or if you have ever come to know about Canterbury Tales, you will find all these things are there in it. You will see the description of how clergies are corrupted, how poor people are starving, what is the actual social condition of the period. You can see all these things in his work. But Chaucer did not do this initially. He was also influenced by his predecessors, the predecessors who were working on alliterative poems, who were interested in showing the elaborate discussions. So, like his predecessors, he also did the same. But in the later period, when he wrote Canterbury Tales, we come to know that he has come to the uh, 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 description. He has come to describe the real situation, the reality around him. His poems can be divided into three different stages. The first one is the French, the second is Italian, and the English poems. If we look at the French group, it is the earliest group, and it is modeled upon the French originals. It was an era where people used to model their works on the classics or other works. So, the poems which are written by Chaucer during this period are modeled on the French originals. The longest poem is the Remount of the Rose. It is a lengthy allegorical poem. It is written in octosyllabic couplets and it is based on Guillaume de Lorus's Les Remount de la Rose. It is not the entire poem, it is only a fragment, but the fragment consists of 8,000 lines and it is entirely ascribed to Chaucer. But okay, in recent researches, certain people find that it is not. The whole of the work is not his own contribution. Maybe a part of it is his contribution. Then we also find the Book of the Duchess, which is probably his earliest written work in the 1369. And when Joan of Gaunt's wife died, he wrote this book to dedicate it to her. And there are also certain other works of this period. The Complaint into Pity and ABC and the Complaint of Mars, etc., are some of the other works which Chaucer wrote during this period. In the second phase, Italian poems, he has written several Italian poems, and his art of writing and technical ability is also growing in this period. So we find Enelida and Arcite, the Parliament of Fowls, Troilus and Cresside, the House of Fame, the Legend of Good Women. These are the works which we find during this period. The work are showing the keenness of perception and originality rather than the French works, because they were modeled upon certain works and these Italian poems are the original works. So the Parliament of Fowls has a fine opening and the characterization of birds also shows Chaucer's comic spirit. So this is for the first time that we find humor in literature, which was not initially found in any works. So Chaucer introduces us to humor. In Troilus and Cresside, it is a long poem. It is adapted from Boccaccio, but in its emphasis on character, it is original. And individually, Chaucer has developed it. Okay, and there is courtly love. There is description of uh, the era, the places. Chaucer cannot be from the tradition that was around him. But what marks him as a distinct writer is his originality and the way he presented or the way he grew by observing, by keenly observing his surroundings. So, the Troilus and Cresside is considered to be the best narrative work of Chaucer. It is in the rhyme royal stanzas. You might know about rhyme royal stanzas. They are they are 7 line stanzas, and it is written in uh, almost his works are written in these stanzas. Decasyllabic couplets are something that he has introduced to English literature. Uh, then comes the third stage, that is English poems. But before we move on to that, we should look at the Legend of Good Women as well. It is also a tale where there are 19 affecting tales of virtuous women are written, but it is not completed. There are only 8 accomplished tales, and the ninth one has only begun. So there are introductions to Daisy, there is masterly narrative, there is a portion dealing with Cleopatra. So, but there is also, it is considered the first ever attempt to introduce English to the heroic couplet, which is later on modified by Alexander Pope, as we already know. So this is something which marks him as an important writer, because he introduced us to so many different uh, characteristics, so many different writing styles, so many elements in writing. When we come to the English poems, the best known is the Canterbury Tales. We know that Canterbury Tales is considered one of the best work of Chaucer. It is essentially English. The first thing is, it is essentially English. So at the time where French and Latin were the dominant languages, Chaucer chooses to write in English. So this is something which marks him as the father of English literature. Second thing is, the Canterbury Tales has so many characters. So we find the elements of novels, drama, and poetry blended into the one text, right? Though it is incomplete, but if we read the prologue itself, we know that there are dramatic elements involved in it. Chaucer does not give any kind of comment on the behavior of the characters. The characters themselves are speaking, themselves are describing themselves, they are behaving the way they are. So the reality of the era, the reality of the society, the reality of church, the reality of religion, the reality of education, etc., are shown in this work. So there are basically there are 29 pilgrims, including Chaucer, and they have met at Tabard Inn. Tabard Inn is a place where they have gathered for the rest, and they are moving on to the shrine of Thomas A. Becket at Canterbury. That is why the name is Canterbury Tales. Uh, at the Tabard Inn, the innkeeper suggests that we should pass our time, we should spend our time by telling each other the stories. So each one was supposed to tell 2 stories, but when we look at the complete work, it is the unfinished work of Chaucer, as some of the above works. It is There are only 20 individual, uh, only finished 20 individual poems. Okay, and the 4 of them are partly complete. So the work is incomplete, but still it is of greater importance, as it shows us that Chaucer could show how people behave, how society works. There are certain other works also mentioned, such as The Lake of Steadfastness, Complaint of Chaucer to his empty purse, Origins upon the Maudlin, The Flower and the Leaf, and The Court of Love. Why Chaucer becomes important? Because he has also introduced prose. Rather than poetry, he has also introduced prose. The 2 of his tales from Canterbury, the Parson's Tale and the Tale of Meliboeus, are in prose. But his prose does not have the stronger grasp of sentence as we find it in his poetry. So the prose, he excels in poetry, but not in prose. The first thing that strikes the eye is Chaucer's unique position, because he is the first with no competitor for hundreds of years to challenge this style of writing. He is, moreover, the forerunner in the race of great literary figures, and so Shakespeare and other writers come later on. But Chaucer is the first one, the pioneer who began writing this way, right? So among Chaucer's literary virtues, his faculty of observation is very prominent. As you can see, in the description of the character, the way he describes the dressing, the manner of speaking, the manner of living, the manner of behaving of the characters in the prologue to the Canterbury Tales, you can definitely see that how observant he was, how connected he was with the people around him, how keenly he worked on this aspect. He was a man of the world, and he has shown various types of people in his works. The peculiarities of human nature are also one of the characteristics that we can see in his work. There are certain descriptive passages upon also, but we can see the best descriptions of man, manners, and places of the first rank in their beauty, impressiveness, and humor. So he is the one who introduces us to the peculiarities of human life, to humor, to the description of society, to the description of the corruption in the society, to description of the religion. So these are the vivacities that make his poetry unique and which is unmatched even today. The prologue has ample material to illustrate Chaucer's power in describing his fellow men. We can see the humor and pathos as well, right? If we look at the character of uh, Clerk of the Oxford, we see there is humor, Clerk of Oxenford. It is semi-farcical as well. If we look at the character of Fife of Bath, it is satirical. So Chaucer has introduced satire as well. If we look at Pardoner and Summoner, the Miller, the Reeve, the Cook, all of these characters are satirical characters. So it is seldom that satirical intent is wholly lacking. But okay, in the case of the good parson, in rare cases, satire is good humored and well meant. He is not deliberately or derogatory presenting anything. He is presenting everyone in a good, humorous manner. He has also shown us the urbanity, the humor in its urbanity, the tolerance and weaknesses of the fellow mortals. So things make him an important part or important beginning of English literature. If we uh, look at the legend of the good women, we can see the examples of pathos in this tale. Uh, you can Google certain of his poems and you will see that how he describes these emotions in his work. As a storyteller, Chaucer employs somewhat some methods which are curious and speedy. His stories are strictly stories, right? And there are weaknesses of his generation as well, such as there are long speeches at some point. There are digressions. There are dreams. There are ethical problems. There are long explanation where none is necessary. So all these things are also found in Chaucer. But uh, there are long, even though there are long speeches, even there are complexities, even there are abundant details, but still we find that he rises above his weaknesses, which are common to the time he is. And he rises as a distinct voice. In the matter of poetical techniques, English literature owes much to Chaucer. Why? Because he has imported virtually the decasyllabic lines from France. It it hardly at all in England previously before him, but later on he started employing the decasyllabic lines. So this is his contribution as a poet. Also, he has introduced the English people to the rhyme royal stanza, which is also a Chaucerian stanza. It is 7-line stanza, rhyming A B A B B C C. So this is also something that is extraordinary about him. He is no great lyrical poet, but in his shorter poems, the rondels and ballads, we can see that he has very best qualities of the contemporary lyric writers that we rarely see. And Chaucer's achievement can be something that he is the earliest of the great moderns. Why? Because there is no one who was before him. Okay, there are writers after him, but he is the one who developed certain aspects. The aspect is his choice of English. The language that he chose becomes English today. So there is also a quotation that Chaucer found his English a dialect and left it a language. So it is his contribution that he has formed the language, he has formed the literature, he has formed the qualities that should be there in the works. So he has also, we can say, rather than poetry, he has also contributed to the novel forms, because in the modern time, we see that in the novel there is characterization, there is plot construction, right? These characteristics we can see in his Canterbury Tales as well, because there is human interest. He borrows material from numerous sources, right, surrounding him. His narration is lively and direct. If we make exception for the numerous digressions and philosophical and pseudo-philosophical uh, adversions having little to do with the tales of proper introduced after the contemporary fashion, it is difficult to find him flagging or growing dull or monotonous. So it is something that he is also, there is a quotation where that prologue to the Canterbury Tales is the prologue to the modern fiction. If it has characters, right, though there is no plot, but it has characters, there is characterization, and which is also the primary job of a novel. So if you have heard George Meredith's quote, it says that a novel is a summary of actual life. So if you read prologue, you find that it is the summary of actual life of England prevalent at that time. uh, Several of the tales are novel in miniature and hold the attention of the reader from beginning to the end, which is not found in the novels even today. So Troilus and Cressida is also called a novel in verse, right? We just looked at that. It belongs to Troilus and Cressida is considered a novel in verse, because it has salient features of a novel. It has plot, it has character, it has action, there is rising action, there is denouement. So he is also a contributor who provided us with novel elements in his work. If we look at his contribution to drama, he hasn't written any dramas exactly, but the way he has described his prologue remains the sole work which is of utmost importance. There are characters who reveal themselves without the intervention of the author through what they say and what they do. This is what happens in drama as well. So even the tales are narrated, they are narrated by the characters themselves. The characters represent their temperaments. They are talking about their temperaments. Everything is done by the character itself. So Chaucer is ahead of the writers in this, that uh, his Canterbury Tales serve as a dramatic device of characterization. Chaucer's During Chaucer's time, there was no prominence of drama, but if he would have lived, he would have excelled in drama as well. There are certain limitations as well of Chaucer, that there is no high seriousness, as Matthew Arnold has once said, that Chaucer's work, there is no high seriousness. But his poetry is great, right? And he is also considered the father of English poetry. But Matthew Arnold feels that there is no high seriousness. Why? Hudson also says that he is not the poet of the people. Chaucer wrote for the court and cultivated classes to whom the sufferings of the poor were a matter of the utmost indifference. Still, there are several critics who find that there are lacking in certain elements, but Chaucer remains the predecessor. Chaucer remains the father of English poetry, because there is no one before him who contributed at large to English poetry. The English that was there in his time was in raw form, yet he chose to write in it. So it was not as polished and full of vocabulary as Latin and French were, but still he transformed the East Midland dialect into a full-fledged language of England. So definitely he knew Latin and French, but due to its complex grammar, uh, people were not able to understand it the way English is easy to comprehend. That is why he adopted English language in his poetry. Sir Walter Raleigh has remarked that Chaucer purified the English of his time from its dross. He shaped it into a fit instrument for his use. So Chaucer's contribution remains the prominent one, as most of the poets used to compose allegorical poetry at that time. It was poetry, but it was allegorical poetry. So Chaucer definitely follows his predecessors, but invents something of his own which deals with real life. That is why Canterbury Tale is the product of this change. It deals directly with life as it was in his age. He describes every character in its true colors. He does not exaggerate or underrate any character. Rather, he paints every character in words as it was before him. So, all these pilgrims or the characteristics of these pilgrims can be related to the real people around us even today. If we look at the corruption in the church at that time, and if we look at the corruption uh, in the present era, we can find so many similarities. If we look at the people who are described in that tale, comparing them with the people of this era, we can see that there are so many similarities. So his work is universal in terms of human nature, right? The qualities of human that he has described are universal. His versification, it is also something that so many poets owes to him. He was the first poet who tried his hands on English poetry. Before him, there was no English poetry. Yes, there were uh, works derived from French and Latin, but there was no exact English poetry with its own English content. During his time, poetry was in its raw shape. He made experiments in versification, give it a new shape, and his contemporaries were also following alliteration, but Chaucer does not follow alliteration only. So he changes everything, and in the old-fashioned alliteration, the number of syllables was irregular, while in the Chaucer's method, the alliteration has regular number of syllables. It has end rhyme. It has absence of repetition as well. So in Chaucer's poetry, we also find that he has used lines of 10 syllables, and the lines are in couplet as well. So every line in a couplet rhymes with each other. So Chaucer is also famous for his new form. Okay, so this is what something he has introduced us. He has introduced us to the 7-line octosyllabic meter. He has introduced us to the rhyme royal stanza. He has introduced us to the humor, pathos, and certain human qualities of literature. That is why his contribution is lavish in his use of humor. He is the best and first humorist in the history of English literature. We can say that because his Canterbury Tales reflects his tendency for humor to a great extent. So in every characterization, we find something humorous, something to note about. Unlike his contemporary poets, Chaucer does not follow the way of didacticism. Right? Didacticism means preaching something, but Chaucer does not preach anything. He just observes and describes. And whatever he describes, it brings smiles on the faces of the reader. That is why there is no didacticism, and he is considered the master of English poetry. Even today, and in future as well, he will be considered the master of English poetry. So far, what we have seen today is how English developed, how English came to be known as English, what was there before Chaucer, how many dialects were there, and what Chaucer did by modifying all these dialects, and some of the important works of Chaucer also we have seen. Okay, this is all from my side. If you have any questions, you can ask.
Ma'am,
Yes.
um, the French language was actually the official language and was language of rich and aristocratic class
Hmm,
during that
hmm,
time,
hmm.
and English was a dialect, right,
Yes,
of
yes.
common people.
Yes.
So he took the dialect and changed it to a form that it
English.
became a language and was
Yes.
very popular afterwards.
Hmm.
And he changed the form, right?
Yes, he changed the, okay, with him, English becomes, okay, the standardization of English begins from this period, right? Initially, English was not standardized. There was no fixed spellings. If you have uh, read it in your English language paper, you might have come to know about the inflections. You know inflections?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
What is
yes.
inflection? What is inflection? Can anyone tell me what is inflection? Okay, there
Yes,
were.
to use to change of form of words to say trees and trees to change in forms of plural, genders, tense,
Hmm, hmm,
etc.
etc. Right.
Numbers.
So there was no inflection, but later on it is developed. There is standardization. We find fixed spellings, but all these happens after Chaucer, right? Even in the time of Shakespeare, we are not able to read him directly, right? We need modern versions. So if you have ever read Chaucer's Canterbury Tales in its original, and if you have enough vocabulary of that period, you will be able to understand what he is writing, or what he means to express. You have also noticed certain spellings which are close to the modern spellings as well, right? The spelling of when, WHEN, which is modern, but in his time it was
Yes.
WHAN. So it was
Yeah.
not, it was written the way it was spoken, right? What happens today is what we speak is different than what is written. But in his time, whatever was spoken was written. If you read it in that way, you will be able to uh, understand the charm of his writing, right? And his choice of English makes him different because there are various poets who have written in French, Latin, and English, but Chaucer is the one who is marveled at writing in English. And this is all because people were striving for their identity, for their own uh, place in the society from the invaders. Right? That is why there is a revival, there is reformation in religion, there is also translation of Bible. Right? So nothing should be the sole property of ruling class. That is why uh, the people and the writers are favoring the local, the dialectical aspects of life. And that is why we can say Chaucer has also favored writing in the dialect of the local people who are not ruling. Right? So it will be people, it will reach to more people, right? So many people will be able to connect with it. That is why we can say Chaucer has used English dialect rather than writing in French or Latin. Yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions, queries? Then please ask. Ma'am, if you permit, I would like to ask a question.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Though I, I I was not there in the entire lecture, but
Okay.
I just want to know on behalf
Hmm.
of my students
Mm-hmm.
that as far as language is concerned, Chaucer
Hmm.
has made English dialect a language.
Yes.
But if you want to say in one line or two lines that
Hmm.
this is the contribution of Chaucer to English literature,
Hmm.
that which hasn't come from any other writer but from Chaucer,
Hmm.
then how should student write in exam if they are to answer this question in exam? I think
In
I'm a
one
bit
or
clear.
two lines.
Yes.
Okay, we can say Chaucer brought certain novel elements in writing, such as his writing is characterized with humor. The earlier writers favored the didacticism. There was description of courtly life, etc. People were discussing the heroes, but Chaucer brings the common people into his writing. If we look at Canterbury Tales only, right? So this is his sole, we can say, contribution. Also, the way he has modified uh, the writing style, the poetry, it is also his sole contribution. This is all we can say about Chaucer, because he is the first one to favor English rather than French and Latin.
Yes.
So these three qualities are something which makes him the father of English literature, or we can say the beginning of English literature, because with him we find something which is purely English, which is purely in its own form, which is original, and that is why he is considered the beginning of English literature.
Hmm. We can also say, I think, that uh, the contribution of Chaucer in the field of literature is his experiments with rhyme royal,
Yes,
the
rhyme royal.
stanza.
Yes, yes. I have mentioned that
So,
as well.
yes, uh, because rhyme royal established Chaucer as an established poet.
Yes.
Otherwise, it was the period when, in Middle English times, that
There was
people
no.
did not have too much. Yes, people did
Yes,
not have
yes,
anything to talk about.
yes. There was nothing that was solely of the poet's own, but rhyme royal changes this aspect. Okay. Any other questions?
Students, the session is still open. You can have questions. And today is our last
No,
lecture of this series. Yes, Kashish.
no, ma'am. I don't have any question. The one I asked is already answered.
Okay.
I really liked your lecture, and it was in very much in detail. We have already studied it, but from you, it was another perspective, and we enjoyed it very well. And it will help us in our final exam as well. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so much, Kashish,
And
for your.
also,
Thank you so
And
much. I am
Madam,
obliged to have been invited. Yes, sir.
Madam, I think you can see the chat box. Couple of
Okay.
students have provided their message
Okay. Yes, sir. There is
feedbacks.
from a message from Apeksha and Malika. Uh, I'm grateful to both of you and to all the students and Dilip sir as well for providing me with this opportunity. And I hope that I had been able to throw a light on Chaucer. Uh, I will look forward to such session in future as well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And I let me anticipate something, that
Yes, sir.
in future
Uh-huh.
we are going to organize a 1 week lecture series for our NET GSET aspirants,
Okay.
because now those are the days gone where students used to prepare for NET GSET in during their masters or post masters. Now
Yes, sir.
students are preparing for these exams even while doing their undergraduation.
Yes, sir.
So
It
I'm
is
going to
required.
organize.
Yes, sir.
So you are going to deliver one lecture on
Sure, sure, sir.
the preparation of NET GSET.
I'll be obliged, sir. Thank you so much.
Any other member from the existing class, if they want to say anything, then the class is still open. Everyone
Madam,
is.
Yes, yes.
Madam, we really enjoyed a lot your lecture. Our concepts are also clear now, and it
Okay.
was really, we feel very glad to have your session. So, thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chandni. I also feel grateful that you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
And let me say 2 words for this entire lecture series, because it is the last lecture of the series and today it is also a valedictorian. So we had teachers across both the universities, and we this time could invite the teachers from government colleges, and next time we think to call teachers from university departments as well as teachers from Rantinate colleges as well. So we can have much more discussions, much more ideas shared. So the end result of this could be the benefit of students. So I thank all those teachers in their absentia, as well as I thank Principal sir, I thank my faculty members, especially I thank Dr. Jiten Parmar sir, because from him I could get the inspiration, because for the first time he organized lecture series for his Hindi students, and from there I got inspired, and then I organized this for our English department students. I thank him. I thank all the teachers. I especially thank our today's expert, Ms. Surbi Parmar, and I thank Government of Gujarat. I thank Microsoft, because they provided such a beautiful and such an effective platform for delivering the expert lectures. I have recorded all the expert lectures, and this lecture is also being recorded. So all these lectures will also be available in video form, and I will share with my students, as well as these video lectures will also be shared with all the concerned teachers. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
let's call it a day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
See you all the students. Stay home, stay happy, stay safe, and take very good care of yourself. See you very soon. Take care.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am.
See you all. See you.